Now it's the more important thing. The more important thing is the more exciting thing is how are we applying Loom Network, how we apply market design to Loom Network. So I do want you to take a pause here, and based on whatever I've talked about previously, how do you think market design is applied? And maybe you can do, I don't know, like 5-10 minutes, just note them down, see if you can come up with some ideas, and then we're just going to go through them. So you can pause now and then get started. Okay, I hope you've done your homework, and I hope you've done that little activity. If not, it's okay, we just go through together. So thickness. So firstly is to build Ethereum so we need thickness to provide as many transactions as possible in the ecosystem. So firstly is to build on Ethereum via sidechain. So how do we get thickness from there? We use Ethereum because it's widespread. A lot of people code on Solidity. It's like the JavaScript of the internet. So for users, for developers, we have a large developer base, and for users, there's also a lot of users on Ethereum. There's also this thing called the Lindy effect, where something that is in the market long enough just gets a lot of trust by people, and Ethereum is one of the older blockchain platforms that builds a lot of trust, and people will naturally come and join the system. Interoperability between blockchain platforms. So it talks to Ethereum network, but it also talks to Tron and EOS. It also talks to Cosmos Chain. So now you're increasing the user base by attracting and tapping into the other platforms. They have tapped into EOS and Tron because there's increasing number of user base for EOS and Tron recently. So Ethereum, EOS, Tron, they want to capture a lot of these market shares and user base. It's also a marketplace for people to plug in, or for smaller games to plug in. So think about Nintendo. Nintendo is like a platform, and then you can access and play a lot of different games that's available on Nintendo. So they want to be something like that. They want to be the marketplace, and then people can build whatever things they want to build, and anyone that comes in to the platform, you can see so many options for you to play around with. So it becomes a marketplace for developers to build their games and then put it on the chain, put it on the platform. Because not everyone is big like CryptoKitties. A lot of games are a lot smaller, and they want to test the market out. So one of the ways to test the market out is to test it on Loom Network. They use gaming applications to gain adoption, as I mentioned. The gaming size is like 2.2 billion users, and of which half of them are actually paying with money to play games. So it's a big industry, and there's so many. It's like 100 million gamers download games every day. People are excited to find new games. Like real gamers are very interested to look for new games, very open to testing out games. So it's not uncommon for people to just try out new games, and that's where gaming application comes in to gain mass adoption. It's also a lower entry for developers to get started, because you just have your SDK available, and they just focus on building, and everything is like a Subway sandwich. Just focus on what kind of ingredients they want to build, which is the smart contracts, and they build that, and then they can just pick and choose what kind of vegetables and sauce they want for the game. The infrastructure is ready. They also have many partners. So they sign with traditional game studios to build games by traditional game designers, and also they partner with like Binance. So they integrate Binance with one of the dApps, which is the game Zombie Battleground. So, and it also resolves the liquidity problem by using Binance DEX, so the decentralized exchange. So there are many ways to create thickness in the market. So traditional game studios and DEX. What about reducing congestion? So we need to reduce congestions to make it easier to consider the options available, and this includes making the options easy to be added into the system as well. So firstly is to have infrastructure ready for developers to develop, because it's easy with the SDK. It's easy for them, and they don't have to consider so many things. It reduces the chances of like, oh, I need to build this, I need to build that. It's too many things. Now that's one of the bottleneck, right? Because I have to build so many things. But instead, the infrastructure is ready. All you have to do is to build the smart contract. It's a lot easier. The other thing is to increase speed with sidechain. So they build, instead of on the main chain where it's a lot slower, they build it on sidechain using Plasma Chain, and The sidechain is also frictionless, where people with MetaMask or Ethereum wallet can just access directly to it. So you reduce congestion, which is the onboarding congestion. You provide a core SDK. It's like a blockchain generator. You get to choose all the different things available. It's like almost like the infrastructure ready for developers. They also use governing validators, which is DPoS, to make it really quick, and 1 to 3 seconds transactions to reduce congestion. And they solve liquidity with Binance DEX. So liquidity is one of a problem as well, because when you have too much assets, or people can't trade, you can't liquid, your assets are too illiquid, then it causes a lot of problem, it causes congestion. And now you can solve liquidity problem with the layer 2 Binance, where you can now trade digital assets on Binance. And just a few very simple stuff. For safety, the community speaks 5 core languages, so you can tap into different kind of, it's more than just English, which is very safe for people. It's also number 2, active on GitHub in terms of activities, so it's very active. People feel safe when the developers are constantly working on it. They work very closely with developers, listen to developers, understanding what they want, and trying to create product fit for them. They build their own test case. So as I mentioned, they partner with traditional game developers, right? But it's, as a traditional game developer, it's like, oh, blockchain is like a hype. I don't believe in that. But instead, they build their own test case, they build their own game, Zombie Battleground, show people that it actually works and it's successful. Then now, as a traditional game developer, you feel safer to want to try it out. Digital assets are secured with Plasma Chain. As I mentioned, you won't suddenly lose your digital assets because it's secured with Plasma Chain and updated in the main chain. Data is open and not owned by anyone. This is really interesting. It's process-based system, so instead of determining what's going to happen, it's process-based, as in you listen, instead of saying, they do it, they do, and they show that things are being done. There's track records to things, there's proper process to executing something, and it's more doing than saying. And that's usually very important for developers or for people who are really interested in the system. You do and not say. It's privately funded, so it's interesting because for something to be privately funded, it's usually slightly safer and better, because then you have a less risk. Usually you sign and say, okay, you need to stick for 12 months instead of just random ICO fundraising, and then usually once it launches on the exchange, people just dump the coins. That's one of the problems. So private funded is slightly better, which brings me to the next point on lockup period, where, as I mentioned, it's 12 months, 6 to 12 months, depending on the contract. You also have full ownership. So full ownership in the game cannot be shut down because it's on Ethereum, and the game, you own the digital assets fully, and the game cannot be shut down because it's on Ethereum and it's always being used. It's just decentralized, and it will just keep running. It's not like any traditional games where you don't like it and then you just shut it down and people can't use it anymore. The other thing is to make it easy to use, for ease of use, the dApps look and feel like traditional applications, traditional games. And it's also very simple interface with SDKs and other stuff like that. It's simple interface, simple front end for developers to come in and use. So it makes it very easy to use. It feels natural. It feels like something that you are using to develop anyway. So it doesn't feel, the learning curve doesn't feel so steep and say, oh, this is like blockchain, so difficult. No, it's the front end is very simple, very easy to use, and it just looks like traditional applications. And for games as well, it just looks like one of your traditional games. When you play, you don't even realize that it's on blockchain. So this is a quick summary of market design and Loom. So you've got thickness, congestion, and safety, and then this side is the market, the Loom networks example on how they apply thickness, congestion, and safety, and this side is on the examples that I was mentioning before, on other examples of how to increase safety, how to reduce congestion, how to increase thickness. So this is the homework for you. So as I mentioned, one of the things that they have done is to build the first game, like the first one of the crypto games, which is Zombie Battleground. And if you want, you can do this homework, which is using Zombie Battleground case study, design fill up the box in in how Zombie Battleground has thickness, reduced congestion, and increased safety.